They say humanity is special, that we're resilient, innovative, capable of greatness even in the face of insurmountable odds. But if you ask me, those are just bedtime stories we tell ourselves to sleep at night. I used to believe them too, until I learned the truth, until I saw what the universe really thinks of us. It started with a message, a signal from deep space that defied everything we thought we knew about the cosmos. It wasn't random noise or some natural phenomenon. It was deliberate, precise, a repeating sequence of tones and frequencies that formed a pattern. The kind of thing no star or black hole could ever produce. The media called it the invitation. Scientists were ecstatic, governments panicked, and conspiracy theorists had a field day. Everyone wanted to know who sent it, and more importantly, why. I was part of the team tasked with finding out. My name's Carter, by the way, Dr. Nathan Carter, astrobiologist, ex-military, and as it turns out, one of the few people dumb enough to volunteer for a mission like this. They called it Project Longshot, which should have been my first clue that things weren't going to end well. Our ship, the Erebus, was state-of-the-art. Faster than light travel, artificial gravity, self-sustaining life support. The works. It was built for one purpose, to follow the signal back to its source, to meet whoever, or whatever, was waiting for us out there. There were 6 of us on board. Captain Reynolds, the no-nonsense leader, who'd seen more combat than any of us cared to imagine. Dr. Elena Vasquez, our linguist and communications expert, brilliant but quiet. Lieutenant Harris, the engineer who could fix anything with duct tape and a prayer. Corporal Singh, our security officer, always ready with a sarcastic remark. And then there was Dr. Emily Monroe, the psychologist. Her job was to keep us sane, though looking back, I'm not sure anyone could have managed that. The journey took months. At first, it was exciting, charting new star systems, marveling at the beauty of the galaxy. But as we got closer to the signal, things started to change. The stars seemed dimmer, the void darker. Even the hum of the engines felt off, like a distant whisper you couldn't quite hear. And then we found it. The source of the signal. It wasn't a planet or a moon or even a space station. It was a structure, a massive alien construct floating in the abyss. Black as obsidian, with jagged spires that twisted and curled like frozen smoke. It looked ancient, older than Earth itself, yet somehow alive, pulsing, watching. We docked the Erebus and suited up. As we stepped inside, the air grew heavy, oppressive. The walls were smooth and cold, covered in symbols that glowed faintly as we passed. Vasquez tried to decipher them, but they didn't match any known language. They weren't meant to be read. They were meant to be felt. And what they made us feel was fear. The deeper we went, the worse it got. Shadows moved where there shouldn't have been any. Strange noises echoed through the halls. Clicks, hisses, whispers in a language none of us understood. Singh joked that the place was haunted, but no one laughed. Then we found the chamber. It was vast, cathedral-like, with a ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. In the center stood a pedestal, and on it, a device. It looked almost organic, like it had grown rather than been built. It pulsed with a sickly green light, and the signal, the invitation, was coming from it. Reynolds ordered Vasquez and me to examine it while the others secured the area. As we approached, the light grew brighter, almost blinding. My heart raced, my skin crawled, but I couldn't stop. It was like the device was calling to me, pulling me in. That's when it happened. The light flared, and suddenly we weren't in the chamber anymore. We were somewhere else. A void, infinite and empty, yet filled with a presence. Something vast and ancient and utterly alien. It spoke to us, not in words but in thoughts, emotions, images. It showed us things, horrible things. It showed us Earth, our history, our wars, our triumphs and failures. It showed us how small we were, how insignificant. And then it showed us what it thought of us. We were pests, infestations, dangerous, unpredictable, and expendable. To them, we weren't special. We were a mistake, a threat that needed to be contained. When the vision ended, we were back in the chamber. Vasquez was screaming, clawing at her helmet as if trying to tear it off. Singh and Harris were shouting, weapons drawn, but there was nothing to shoot at. Monroe was crying, muttering something about the eyes over and over again. And Reynolds. Reynolds was gone. The next few hours were chaos. The Erebus wouldn't respond to our signals, and the shadows in the corridors were no longer just shadows. Things moved in the dark, hunting us, picking us off one by one. Harris was the first to go, dragged into the void by something we never saw. Then Monroe, who simply vanished. One moment she was there, the next she wasn't. By the time we made it back to the ship, only Singh and I were left. We sealed the hatch and fired up the engines, desperate to escape. But as we broke free of the construct, the signal changed. It wasn't an invitation anymore. It was a warning, a beacon. We'd been marked. That was 2 years ago. Singh didn't make it. The nightmares drove him to put a bullet in his skull. As for me, I don't sleep much these days. Every time I close my eyes, I see them. The eyes watching, waiting. Humanity isn't special. We're not the heroes of some grand cosmic story. To them, we're nothing but vermin. And one day they'll come to finish what they started. So if you ever hear the signal, if you ever hear the invitation, do yourself a favor. Don't answer it. Don't. I thought escaping the construct meant we were safe. I thought putting light years between us and that cursed place would make it all go away. But I was wrong. The signal didn't stop. It followed us, like a phantom tethered to our ship, growing louder, more insistent with every passing day. The Erebus became a tomb. The once gleaming corridors turned into a labyrinth of shadows, the hum of the engines a constant dirge. Singh tried to drown it out with music at first, blaring old rock songs through the comm system. But even he couldn't ignore the whispers that crept in between the notes. By the time we reached Earth's orbit, Singh was already unraveling. He'd stopped eating, stopped sleeping. He spent hours staring out the viewport, muttering under his breath about shapes in the dark, things moving just beyond the edge of the stars. I tried to reason with him, but what could I say? I was seeing them too. We sent out a distress signal as soon as we entered the solar system. Command responded immediately, ordering us to dock at a classified station on the far side of the moon. They wanted debriefs, scans, quarantine protocols, the whole 9 yards. But when we arrived, they weren't prepared for what we brought back with us. The Erebus was empty by then. Singh had locked himself in the airlock 2 days earlier. I begged him to open the door, to let me help him, but he just smiled, a hollow, broken thing, and said, "They're already here, Carter. You can't stop them." Then he vented himself into space. I was alone after that, just me and the whispers. When the recovery team boarded the Erebus, they found me in the cockpit, clutching a bottle of whiskey and staring at the dead console. I don't remember much of what happened next, just flashes of men in hazmat suits, bright lights, questions I couldn't answer. They took me to a secure facility, locked me in a room with no windows, and ran every test you can imagine. Physical, psychological, neurological. They wanted to know what happened out there, what we saw, what we heard. But the truth is, I couldn't tell them. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't understand it myself. How do you explain something that defies explanation? How do you describe the indescribable? They kept me there for months, poking and prodding, trying to piece together the puzzle. I told them about the construct, the device, the vision. I told them about the eyes. But they didn't believe me, not really. Oh, they nodded and took notes, but I could see it in their faces. They thought I was crazy, another astronaut who'd cracked under the pressure of deep space. Then the anomalies started. It began with a signal, a faint pulse on their instruments, identical to the one we'd followed to the construct. At first, they dismissed it as interference, a glitch in the system. But it grew stronger, more persistent. Equipment malfunctioned, lights flickered, and the whispers found their way into the facility. People started losing it. Scientists, guards, technicians. They all heard it. Some claimed it was voices. Others said it was memories, fears, regrets. Whatever it was, it got inside their heads, twisted them from the inside out. One by one, they broke. Some turned violent, attacking anyone who came near. Others simply stopped. Stopped talking, stopped moving, stopped being. And then there were the disappearances, people vanishing without a trace, as if they'd been plucked out of existence. Security footage showed nothing. One moment they were there, the next they weren't. It was as if the shadows themselves had swallowed them whole. The facility went into lockdown. No one in, no one out. They thought they could contain it, isolate the threat. But how do you contain something you can't see? Something that isn't bound by the laws of physics or reality? I was still in my cell when the power failed. The emergency lights cast everything in an eerie red glow, and the air felt thick, suffocating. The whispers were louder now, almost deafening. And then I saw them, the eyes, dozens of them, glowing faintly in the darkness, watching me from the corners of the room. I don't remember how I escaped. Maybe they let me go. Maybe they wanted me to leave, to carry their message. All I know is that I woke up in an alleyway 3 miles from the facility, covered in blood that wasn't mine.